Like in Ephesians 3, if you look at verse 6, it says, this mystery is that through the gospel, the Gentiles are heirs together with Israel, members together of one body, and sharers together in the promise of in Christ Jesus. How do the Jews feel about that? Jim, they were upset. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, he also chose Paul to show how much he had to suffer, right? Yeah, just kind of. Oh, you want this one? Thank you. Exactly. So if you look at, that's much better. Come on now, where's my mouse? There it is. All right. So if you look at Acts chapter 13, verse 50, we're looking at Acts chapter 13, verse 50, and Acts 22, verses 21 through 22. In 1350 says, they stirred up persecution against Paul and Barnabas and expelled them from their region. Okay? And then in Acts 21 through 22 says, then the Lord said to me, go, I will send you far away to the Gentiles. Right? The crowd listened to Paul until he said this. Then they raised their voices and shouted, rid the earth of him. He's not fit to live. So they didn't like that Paul was preaching to the Gentiles as well. Not that the Jews are doing great anyways, listening to the gospel, right? So the earliest persecution of the church came from the Jewish establishment. It wasn't even in Rome; it was the Jewish community. But why did the Jews see the church as a threat to their way of life? Power. They thought what? They thought that the Christians were viewing Caesar as God, you said? Sorry, I'm not. Yeah. Okay. Okay, yeah. So yeah, I mean, Rome is in charge, right? Caesar is the guy in charge. So they're thinking that the Christians are taking away their allegiance to Rome, to Caesar. Okay. Well, so oops, I clicked the wrong one. I meant to click this one. So they believed that the Christians taught that there were two gods, Father and the Son, right? Actually, that's what I watched this video where these guys who I think they grew up Catholic, converted to Islam, and then they said that they were convinced that Christianity was polytheistic because of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, not just one, Allah. So that's what they thought, right? But no, I mean, it's hard to make people understand that they're the one God, but there's three in the one, right? Oh, and because Christians believe that Jesus fulfilled the law of Moses, right? Like we watched that scene last week. And again, they didn't like that they were including the Gentiles in the promises that God gave to Israel. So those are some of the things that they saw as a threat from Christians. Okay, so the first generation Christians actually didn't see themselves as a new religion, right? Well, why? Well, what did the Jewish scriptures say? Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So they're thinking we're still Jewish. It's just that law has been fulfilled, right? That Jesus came. He was the Messiah that's been prophesied throughout the Old Testament, right? For 1,000 years or two, right? Before then. So that they actually saw themselves in complete harmony with the scriptures, right? That they were the true Jews, right? In the sense that they recognized that Kay said that the scriptures had been fulfilled, right? All those prophecies. So Stephen, Peter, and John tried telling this message to those who were persecuting them, but all those people still rejected Jesus as the Messiah and condemned the first Christians to death. So soon, the persecution of the church by the Jews gave way to persecution by the Roman government, right? It's kind of trickling down. So who's kind of known in the Roman government for persecuting Jews? Who? Nero, yeah, Nero. In my picture, there you go. So we have Nero entering the picture here. So things were bad, but things get a lot worse under Nero, right? So he became emperor in AD 64 at 16 years old. Can you guys imagine having a president that's 16 years old? No? I couldn't. It'd be crazy. But he was a strong leader, but again grew very paranoid over his reign, right? He would act irrationally and had many people murdered that he thought was a threat. So in June 18th, AD 64, a fire breaks out in Rome. Okay, this fire breaks out. He's not there. I'm not sure where he was, but when he heard of it, he came back. Okay. And he helps kind of set up efforts to fight the fire. Okay, this fire lasted for 6 days. 6 days, 7 nights, and then it would kind of keep popping up here and there for the next 3 days. So this is a week and a half, right, of stuff going on. So here's a nice little picture of just artist rendition, right, of the fire. I mean, this had to be devastating, right? This had to be completely devastating. So the Roman citizens, who else? Who wouldn't want that person who started this punished, right? But some thought that Nero did it. We think Nero did this. And so the theory, because what they thought was he started these fires so he could build a palace and rebuild Rome to bring himself glory, right? Oh, I'm going to be the greatest Roman emperor. So all those rumors began to spread. Obviously would not put Nero in a good position, right? But what did Nero do? Citizens want the culprit punished, right? Some think it's him. But so what did he do about it? He's like, you know what, guys? There's too much controversy here. I'll just step down, right? And we'll have someone else become Roman emperor. Is that what he did? He blamed the Christians, right? He blamed them. Oh, the Christians did it, right? They did it. They are responsible for this. And this is when we have a systematic, right, attack on Christians. So planned out, well thought of plans, right, to attack Christians. This sounds kind of familiar, though, to me. If you think about, like, Germany in the 1930s, right, there was a fire started at the Reichstag building. And no one knows who started it, okay? No one knows who started it. Again, there's theories, right? And at this time, I think his name was von Hindenburg. He was president at the time, or whatever the title was of Germany. And like Hitler was like the vice president kind of guy at the time. But who do you think was blamed for the fire? Not the Jews, the communists were blamed for the fire, right? But they also thought that the Jews were were like working with the communists. Okay, so this is when Hitler took all power in Germany, and history is there, right? So maybe it's happened again in modern times. We don't know, right? We'll never know, I bet. I bet we will never know. So here, I'm going to show some pictures of some artist renditions of ways that Christians were persecuted, right, and attacked. So, Kathy, you might need to cover Bill's eyes, okay? So we got maybe throwing in the Colosseum with wild animals, right? But what do you notice that the Christians are doing? They're praying, right? They're praying. And look at the huge crowd, right? Everyone's watching this. Everyone's watching this. So we're still in a Colosseum place, right? I bet that cross is there for mocking purposes, right? We got, hey, let's tie Christians up at the top of poles and wrap them and stuff, and let's use them as the torches to light the city. How's that sound? Yeah. Doesn't sound very fun, right? I'm glad that didn't happen to the Bibles when they were in Italy, Thank goodness, right? Okay. Crucify, right? Some crucifixion going on here. Okay. And maybe that's John being thrown in the boiling pit, right? Or a big old thing of boiling oil and whatever it was, right? So there was a lot of ways that they were persecuting Christians, right? But keep in mind too, people are watching all their attitudes during this, right? So some people are moved by just the meekness of the Christians as they were literally being torn apart by animals or whatever, right? It's crazy. So Nero devised the cruelest of tortures for Christians, as we just saw, right? Like this, he would wrap them in wild animal skins and throw them into a pack of wild dogs, which sounds not fun at all. Not fun at all. Burning them alive, right? Like we saw, burning them at night to give light to his courtyard, right? Just horrible stuff. Horrible stuff. But during this time, when Nero was emperor, this is when Paul and Peter were killed. Okay? No, their deaths are not described in the Bible, but if you look at 2 Timothy, let's have someone read 2 Timothy chapter 4, 1 through 8. This just says that Paul was willing to die for it all, right? Whoever's there, I'll give you the microphone and you can read it. You got it, Debbie?
I'll stand up. More respectful. I solemnly charge you in the presence of God and of Christ Jesus, who is to judge the living and the dead, and by his appearance and his kingdom, preach the word. Be ready in season and out of season. Reprove, rebuke, exhort, and with great patience and instruction. For the time will come when they will not endure sound doctrine, but wanting to have their ears tickled, they will accumulate for themselves teachers in accordance to their own desires, and will turn away with ears from the truth, and will turn aside to myths. But you be sober in all things, endure hardship, do the work of an evangelist, fulfill your ministry. For I am already being poured out as a drink offering, and the time of my departure has come. I have fought the good fight, I have finished the course, and I have kept the faith. In the future, there is laid up for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award to me on that day, and not only to me, but also to all who have loved his appearing.
Thank you. So Paul knew what was going to happen, right? He's like, it's just a matter of time. And he was ready. That didn't stop him, right? But we do know that Peter was crucified upside down because he didn't think it was worthy to be crucified like Jesus was, right? Well, he is actually put upside down. And then Paul was beheaded, he was beheaded because that was like the one of the few accepted ways to execute a Roman citizen. So not the torturous ways. You want just quick and clean, right? Done. All right. So the church continued to face persecution really for the next several 100 years. But the way that they were persecuted changed. There are clear descriptions in the 2nd century from correspondence between the governor of Bithynia and the Roman emperor. Bithynia is this northern part of Turkey right there, or modern-day Turkey. Okay, right there by the Black Sea. So Pliny, who was the governor of Bithynia, so he much of his population had converted to Christianity, and so the pagan temples were actually not to be as filled anymore, right? Just like last week, Michael was saying that there was a lot of business surrounding Roman religion because people would need to buy the little figurines, right, and whatever type of other things that they had for worship, right, that they'd put in their own houses. Well, I mean, if you're Christian, you don't need those things, so business is going down. But what's the problem here, right? So they outlaw Christianity. Pliny rounds up Christians and orders them to recant their beliefs. But when they refused, there you go, he just tortured them or even killed them, right? Pliny wrote to Trajan, who was then emperor. Okay, he's like, hey, how do I handle these people? Right, they're just not recanting their God. So how do I handle these people? Trajan says, hey, don't round them up. Okay, but if there is an accusation made against a Christian, take them to court, and then command that they renounce Jesus. And if they refused, it's kind of like treason, right? It's a crime of rebellion. But the systematic, the plans of how they were persecuting Christians ends when Marcus Aurelius is emperor in the year 161. But he's a really good thinker. I mean, he has a book called these are his meditations, right? It's still seen as a literary masterpiece. I've never read them. Has anybody ever read his meditations? I was hoping Micah was here because he probably read them, or even Austin. Jim, have you read his Marcus Aurelius, his meditations? No. If I had prepared better, I probably would have brought some up here. All right. But during his reign, Rome is suffering from a string of invasions, constant flooding, epidemics, and other disasters. But again, who's to blame for all of this? Yeah, who else, right? The Christians are blamed for this. But why are they blaming the Christians for this? Why do they think that all these bad things are happening? Yeah, well, that, and remember, the Romans are still believing gods, but hey, they're not believing it, so the gods are angry, which is what's causing all of this stuff, right? And Marcus Aurelius agrees with them. And so they were charged with atheism. So if you don't believe in our gods, then you don't believe in any god, right? Especially the gods of the empire. But by the end of the 2nd century, the persecution of Christians actually went down only because of civil war and barbarians, or what they call barbarians, right, would attack them from the outside. So there's a lot of mess going on here. Well, the 3rd century wasn't that great either, at least in the beginning. Septimius Severus, sounds like a Harry Potter character. Squelched the civil wars and barbarian attacks. Okay, remember, guys, if you see fancy words up here, those are not mine. Those are from the book, right? I just wanted to sound smart. To create a stronger, united front against Rome's enemies, he mandated people could worship their own gods, or God, right? But their chief allegiance must be to the sun god. Okay. And it's this guy right here. Sol Invictus. That was the god he wanted them to worship, right? And those who refused syncretism, remember what that meant? Syncretism? Remember, Joel, what that was? Well, what is, like, when something is in sync, what does that mean? Again? Yeah. It's when, like, you have your beliefs, but you add beliefs from other things, right? And you kind of put them together, kind of mesh them together, right? Yeah, blending. Yeah, it's like blending. Yeah. So if you did not syncretize your beliefs, then you were heavily persecuted. And this lasted until Constantine in the 4th century. There he is right there. Constantine. All right. So 2 questions here. How we're going back to number 4. How did the Roman Empire negatively and positively impact the emergence of the church? Let's start with the positive things. What are some of the positive things that the Roman Empire did that helped the church expand? They let them worship, right? Yeah, at least at first, right? They didn't really see them as a problem. Okay, what else? Well, they did physical things, right? That the Christians took advantage of, right? Like roads, right? Like safe waterways. Okay. Again, like Bill said, they still let them practice their own religion, so Jews outside of Jerusalem could have their own, places of worship where they went. Okay, but what were some of the negative things that went against the expansion of the church? They threw them to the lions, right? Yeah. Threw them to the lions. This is after Nero, right? Saw them. He blamed them, right, for all this devastation from the fire in Rome. Okay, man, when that air went off, it got really quiet in here. You saw that he burned them in his courtyard, right, for light. Okay, all these things. Okay. They saw them, they created laws, right, that showed that they were actually now criminals, right, especially if they refused if they refused to recant God or did not blend, right, their beliefs with their beliefs, right? But how did the first Christians see their beliefs in relation to the Old Testament? Yeah. They definitely blended in the original Jewish beliefs with their beliefs, right? Which is, I mean, it's all part of the Bible. Is that what you're saying? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. They really couldn't be Christian if they couldn't follow some of those laws. But did they see, was like this a new religion to them? No. Why not? Oh, am I past my time? 15, right? Oh, I got 5 minutes? Oh, wow. I wasn't even watching the time, guys. I'm sorry. But yeah, they saw themselves as original Jews, right? So next week we will get into Africa and how Africa helped spread the church around. So thank you, guys. Last week will be my last week. Next week will be my last week. So, all right. Thank you, guys.